Hi, everybody. Jim McNiff here at the National Sports Center, the Super Rink. We're in the middle of the Herb Brooks Holiday Classic, the inaugural Herb Brooks Holiday Classic. For 18 years, this was known as Schwan Cup. But now the name has been changed to reflect the partnership between the National Sports Center and the Herb Brooks Foundation, carrying on the work of the legendary coach who left us all too soon. Part of that, obviously, the Brooks family, very much working on the legacy of your father. Dan Brooks joining us now, also a member of the board. Dan, thank you for taking some time out of your Christmas and holiday break with your family to come out here and join this. Can I ask you just your reaction when you heard we were going to change the name of this tournament from Schwan Cup to the Herb Brooks Holiday Classic?
Well, we're very honored. The history of the Schwan's Cup was, speaks for itself. It was one of the top tournaments in town. I know a lot of the former teams that were in the Schwan's Classic are now, playing in other tournaments, which is fine. My dad thought the world of the National Sports Center. He was actually behind its development and its plan and its design going back into the early 80s. So he was passionate about this location, about the organization that runs the National Sports Center, and he was obviously, a huge proponent of high school hockey. He being a former state high school hockey champion, 1955, he believed in high school hockey. He believed in the opportunities that it brought for kids, and we couldn't be more happy.
So we think about Herb when this tournament comes up. Obviously, it's a name you carry, and even for me coming up here and being sort of in this role that I have, it means so much to me being a Minnesotan that grew up and followed your dad from his time at the University of Minnesota, then on to the Miracle on Ice, and getting to know him a little bit when he came back and coached again in 2002. The work that he had, the vision that he had, and now watch Minnesota hockey grow, especially in the girls' game. What do you think your dad would say to the proliferated growth in the game?
He'd be very happy with what's happened in Minnesota. Besides him being a big proponent of high school hockey, he was a big believer and a big proponent of the Minnesota Elite League, the high school Elite League. That was kind of his baby. But not just Minnesota. He felt that hockey should grow across the nation, and it really has. So to see these kids coming out of Las Vegas, Los Angeles, St. Louis, he always said his dream one day is to see the Division I national championship be, Georgia Tech versus Arizona. So he was all about the growth of the game in the country. But to see what's done in Minnesota here, he'd be ecstatic.
It's very exciting for us to have this be the inaugural year as we approach 40 years of the Miracle on Ice. And I've been in touch with Rob McClanahan's going to be here later tonight. Later this week, Harrington's going to come, and so is Buzzy Schneider. And as I was talking to Buzzy on the phone, I said, we're getting to that cycle again where your phone's starting to ring and people are starting to look for you as it does every 5 years or every sort of marquee time. And are you guys starting to see that now? And as a kid who was sitting there in the stands and watched that whole thing, can you believe we are now talking about 40 years?
Time flies. I was actually at work today, and someone said that I think ESPN came on the air in 1980 or 1979. Does that sound about right? So they just had they're having their 40th anniversary, and they just named Miracle on Ice as the biggest event in the history of ESPN, being a company. So I can't believe it was 40 years ago. It seems like yesterday. You were right. I was there. I was 12 years old. I was in 7th grade, saw all the games, saw the gold medal ceremony. It was absolutely phenomenal, and the stories I'll take to my grave.
And we still to bask in those stories. Can't ever hear it enough. So now you have this tournament here, 54 boys teams, 64 girls teams. You've got 175 some games played over the course of 3 days, and arguably, because you may lose teams in the sections sometimes, but I mean, especially on the girls' side, this is probably going to be the greatest collection of talent. So as someone who seeks to grow the game, in the words of your dad, for the foundation, where's the greatest need? Where can people most get involved to see that vision of your dad's come through, to expand the game beyond the state of hockey?
Well, I think what's going on in hockey in Minnesota, some of the things that he wouldn't agree on, you're seeing organizations merge. I won't name names, but some kind of prominent organizations are now merging. I think he would be against that. I think he would want these more youth organizations. I think he would want parents to get involved in the grassroots level and go out and find players. Again, he was all about youth hockey. He felt that the broader the base of the pyramid, the higher the peak. And so, that being said, he would like to see more involvement there. He would be happy, however, with what is happening outside of the metro area. Greenway is kind of back on the map. Laverne's had a lot of success. And if you look at what has caused those stories to be so successful, it comes from, local parents, local business people that are just, rolling up their shirt sleeves and getting involved.
So most people will get their familiarity of a certain age with your dad through the movie Miracle. And I remember your dad telling me that Kurt Russell was going to play him, and I was just stupefied. And he's like, "Oh, you don't think he could?" And I said, "Herb, I can't imagine anyone in Hollywood playing you." But I think he actually did a pretty good job, for what it was called for. So, is there anything like you think that is maybe misunderstood about your dad, or something, a message that really hasn't gotten out there or been told in the 40 years that you think is important to say?
We could spend a lot of time talking about Miracle. Actually, Tom Hanks was rumored to play my dad. But Kurt Russell, his son, who's now an actor, was a goalie at the time. And Kurt Russell, a huge hockey fan in L.A., lobbied for that role. And Kurt, basically his whole career was Disney. My personal story about Miracle when I first saw it, are you familiar with the movie The Rookie with Dennis Quaid about the pitcher? So it's basically the same writer, producer of that movie. And so when I heard about Miracle and when I was getting close to see it, I thought it was going to be more kind of like that. That was more of a kind of a happy-go-lucky, kind of a upbeat, almost like Mighty Ducks movie. That's kind of what I thought Miracle was going to be, kind of a Mighty Ducks. I was very surprised kind of the heaviness of the movie, kind of how serious the movie was. But I thought the movie was about 85% accurate. I always joke that Kurt Russell character didn't swear. That's one thing I remember my dad, he did do that just a little bit. But there's a couple things they had to change, but overall they really captured the moment. I was very, very pleased. It was quite emotional for me and my family to see the movie. But, they did a fantastic job. And one of the reasons the Miracle on Ice is so popular today, it would always have been popular, but the movie Miracle has, allowed younger people, younger than you and I, to kind of relive that moment. So
there had been a previous movie, I know you're aware of, that Carl Malden actually played your dad, and he wasn't over the moon about that one. So this was better. So Dan Brooks, I want to say thank you very much for coming in and giving us some time, for sharing some memories of your dad. And now that this is going forward, we look forward as the National Sports Center to working with the Herb Brooks Foundation, to growing the game, to honoring your dad, and to making this game be everything that it can be in the state going forward. Merry Christmas, and thank you so much. Yeah. All right. They have Dan Brooks from the Herb Brooks Foundation talking about the man who this tournament has now been named after. We, of course, have had one interview. We had the Northfield team on earlier. We're going to be doing interviews with coaches and players throughout the tournament. Later today, we are going to be joined by one of the players who was on that Miracle team, Rob McClanahan, will be joining us about 6 o'clock. Until then, we'll be checking back from the National Sports Center and here at the Super Rink. I'm Tim McNiff. We'll talk to you soon.